Hello again and welcome to Techturks. Today I have Boye. Boye is one of the co-founders of Gradely. Gradely is an ed tech platform, the ecosystem, in fact, that serves not only schools, tutors, and teachers. Boye, thank you for coming on to Techturks. Why the name Gradely first?
I think, what's interesting about the name is that I think it came out at the end as perfect, but initially started with wanting to find something that speaks to how analytics was a big part of how we're doing things. So it's like, how do you analyze? Data was essentially at the heart of it, right? We started at the homework tool, was how do we use homework data to find out where the gaps of children are and then do something about it. So we're looking for names that were more apt than others. And we had quite a number of names, and it ended up being great. That came out really perfect.
The question I like to ask on this show is, before you started Gradely, you were doing something else. Why did you now, switch to this? And what problem were you trying to solve? And why did you think that was a problem for many people? That's the reason why people do this thing, because they think that a lot of people are going through this and they have, because in the end, they have that it will be successful based on scale.
Yes. So essentially what my career path has taken me through edtech, then fintech, and back to edtech. So I'd always been passionate about education. So I started with edtech, but when I started my first edtech startup in 2012, maybe after school, the market wasn't ready in the sense that internet access wasn't really so major. Schools, I had to go to computer labs in schools and network them physically in order to put content on there. So I had done something like this before. So when I realized that, the K-12 market seemed to be very nascent, I then went to work with a mentor of mine who was running a company called Venture Garden Group. And in Venture Garden Group, they were doing for what we're trying to do for secondary and primary, they were already doing it for tertiary, right? And so it was, for me, an opportunity to learn everything about content development, content creation, deploying online learning management systems, selling and marketing for a new online alternative to what people are used to doing in a physical setting. And I had the range of experience. I ended up being the vice president in the education division and ran everything from technology to marketing. And so for me, it was like preparation for this. But I had then gone off a tangent and created a fintech startup because I thought that was also an emerging field that needed real innovations with my co-founder Salami. And I after 2-3 years in Ribi, I felt like it was time. I'd invested in edtech. I found out that data points at now started telling me that all teachers had smartphones, even in public schools, right? And then the access had increased significantly. And there was now an increasing need for local content, for local solutions to some of the problems. The problems are very deep problems, right? The statistics for the problem is that in Africa, 9 out of 10 students do not meet minimum proficiency in literacy or numeracy. So they can't do simple calculations, even though they're supposed to be in GSS3. And they cannot really read the comprehension passage and understand the tone of the author. And so you really have problems like that, compound and create a market of young people in the future that are not going to be employed or employable because we are, the economy has advanced to even a more advanced knowledge economy. So this is the problem, and it's a problem at scale in Africa and even globally. That's what we're trying to solve.
Okay, you have your ecosystem. I went through your website and I was very impressed. And you also have a mobile app. And there. So clearly you have deployed resources to try and really make this truly a platform that is accessible by people. But you have, your stakeholders are, parents. They're also schools, and then you also have tutors. Now, which came first? How did you build that ecosystem? Because when you're starting, you need content. I know that I read an article there in part of the articles there that you also need. What differentiates you is the content that you have. That's why people come there too. But how did you start? Who did you start off with first? Was it the parents? Was it getting the tutors first, or the schools, or you just did all three at the same time? That's the story. That's something I'm eager to hear.
It's interesting. what's interesting is also the fact that we're like two years plus, 2 years, 2.5 plus
Exactly.
years.
Yeah.
Very young company that builds literally what we call an ecosystem.
Yeah.
How we started at the heart of why we started. I remember someone from the World Bank saying, we don't have data. We spent $3 million in a state in Nigeria to find out data about how teachers teach and how students learn and how you can improve that interaction. And, so at the heart of what we're trying to do was to find data. And so we said, where can we find data for children's learning performance? And this is one of the things that, tilted us towards the direction of schools. So we said, okay, you know what, let's build a homework tool for schools to use mathematics, where doing it online was preferable to doing it offline because it was easier, questions were already existing, so many other things like that. So on the back of that homework that they create, the mathematics homework, we can now find out that, okay, this child doesn't know fractions, this one is struggling with average and statistics and so on and so forth. And so it was on the back of that data that we started getting early in our start of the company that we now knew that, okay, how do you solve this problem? They're there now, we can see all the problems. The school sees it, parents sees it, we see it, what do we do to solve it? So one of the things you could do to solve it is we thought was tutoring, one-on-one tutoring. And we started that online, we started testing that out. And before you know it, you have parents that were like, totally just use it as the after school program. And that continued from then and grew to what it is. And then for the video lesson part, it was, how do you make tutoring cheap enough and reusable? Because if you have to always book it an hour with a tutor for every small problem that you have, understanding of the concept, it will get very expensive pretty fast. And what is unique is that the tutor, unlike the lesson teacher that came to the house and would ask you what happened in school today and kind of try to touch on maths and English and science, and is an expert of none, but he's just essentially trying to help and makes a marginal improvement in child learning because he's helping the child remember a few things. What Grayley is doing is that he's saying, hey, you have a real challenge in fractions. You answer easy questions in fractions, but difficult questions pull you down. What problems do you do not do well with what problems? So the teacher is spending 1 hour in the most efficient way possible to solve for that gap in fractions. And that is kind of, so you can book just exactly what you need.